Hola amigos, buenas, ¿cómo estamos? Hey, welcome to a lesson, and if I'm living my life right and doing things correctly, this is the first lesson that we are learning. We are starting out with the alphabet because when we are learning a new language, one of the first things that we have to worry about is the base of that language. And so we need to learn about the sounds in the new language that are going to be different from the sounds from the original language, the first language. In this slideshow, my first slide that I want to talk to you guys about is this sentence right here. All right, so let me read this for you. English is tough, though it can be taught through thorough thought. All right, and the reason that I start with this, the reason that that this is my jumping off point is because if you look at this sentence, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words that are spelled almost identically in the English language. Very slight differences in the spelling of those, very slight differences in the way they look on paper. However, if you talk about the way they sound when you speak them, we have, for example, we have tough and we have though. All right, so those two words are one letter off, and yet they make completely different sounds. All right, the TH sound is different in though and thought. And what I'm trying to point out here is that in the Spanish language, there is very little variation. In the Spanish language, the vowel sounds always sound the same, and you're not going to have these words that look almost identical but sound completely different. Some of the only things that we have to worry about are accent marks and other diacritical marks like the tilde and the diatheses. And we'll talk about all those things as we go through. This sentence right here points out just how difficult it is to learn English. So if the English was your first language, then Spanish is going to be pretty easy. All right, next up we have las vocales. And what I'm going to be doing as we go through the vowels is I'm going to be, first off, writing out what they sound like. For example, this A is, once again, the vowels always make the same sound. So A is always going to sound like it should, E is always going to sound the way it should, and so on and so forth. And this is going to sound like ah. And it's going to sound like the ah in awesome, without the W, of course. All right, the letter E is going to go E. And it shows up 3 times in this word, element, and it sounds that way in Spanish all the time. E. All right, the letter I is going to go E, just like in the word saline. The letter O is always going to say O, like in the word open. And the letter U is going to make that oo sound, like in parachute. One of the things that is also very important in learning a language is being able to see someone's mouth. So if I'm teaching behind this mask all the time, and you guys can't see my mouth, you can't see what shape it's making when it makes these sounds. And so I'm going to go ahead and lower my mask right now. There's nobody in here. I'm all alone. I'm healthy. But I'm going to go ahead and lower my mask and look into the camera and pronounce each one of these things individually. So here we go. A, E, I, O, and U. One thing about the vowel sounds in Spanish is they will always make this sound. But one of the things that we need to do is we need to shorten them up. And so what I like to do on every single one of these things is just kind of like put a little slash at the end, and that's telling you to cut that thing off pretty quickly, pretty shortly. All right, so once again, A, E, I, O, and U. One of the things that I would suggest for you all, if you were in my class, is while you're going through this slide, take notes on it, and from home, in the privacy of your room, in the privacy of any place that you can get away from anybody. One of the things that I remember from my Spanish class when I first started taking Spanish in high school is that I felt incredibly silly trying to say these words in Spanish. So one of the things that's probably going to be a good idea for you guys is to start pronouncing these things at home to kind of like take the edge off of that silly feeling. One of the things I can guarantee you is that everybody else in the classroom probably feels just about the same way that you do. All right, so if you're trying to learn all these new sounds, then, just like give it a shot when you're all alone by yourself, and then when you do it here in front of everybody else, with everybody else, and it's going to make it just a little bit easier. All right, so take notes and repeat with me. All right, next slide that we're going to talk about are these sounds and letters that are new. A couple of these things actually are actual letters in the Spanish language. However, there is a governing body of the Spanish language called the Real Academia Española, or RAE for short. And what they do is they go into the Spanish language and they decide what kind of changes they want to make for, the language in a new year, in a new decade. All right, so if we're talking about these new sounds and new letters, this guy right here is no longer a letter in the Spanish language, so we can kind of like cross that off and get rid of it. The eye, this guy right here, he is an actual letter in the Spanish language. Next one right here, ñ is definitely a letter in the Spanish language. And once again, while I was in high school and I was learning the new language, R, this guy right here, was an actual letter of the alphabet, but he no longer is a letter of the alphabet. So che and R have been removed from the Spanish alphabet, but ella and ñ still exist. I'm going to leave them up here. When we learn the Spanish alphabet song, che is going to be in there for sure. R won't be in there anymore, but che is still going to be there. So I'm going to leave it on the list. All right, and it says new sounds and letters, but we already know che from English. We have the exact same rule regarding the letters C and H together. It goes ch. All right, and once again, here comes my mouth. Ch. All right, everyone repitan che, chocolate. All right, everyone repitan ella, and this is going to make the Y sound like in you. And then repitan ella, llama. All right, the next one is ñ, and this is going to sound like an N and a Y crammed in together in the middle of a word. So everyone repitan ñ, piñata. And then this last one, the double R, is going to be a rolled R. And a lot of you guys might be thinking to yourself, I don't know how to roll my R's. I can't do that. But one of the things that I want you guys to do right now, practicing this while you're watching the video, and one of the things you'll definitely do in class when we get back to it, is you're going to do this. If you can go duh, and so I want everyone to make the D sound, duh, duh, as in dog. All right, if you can go duh, I want you to go duh, 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 duh. All right, and then I want you to take that duh, 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 and I want you to speed it up. Duh, 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 duh. All right, so if you can go duh, and you can go duh, 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 and you can go duh, 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 then you can go drrrr as well. One of the things that we do while we're going through this is I will put a drawing up on the board every single year. And what is going on here is this is your front top tooth right here. All right, that's your front top tooth. That's your front bottom tooth. All right, if you feel behind your front top tooth, it goes into this piece right here. All right, so put your tongue up here behind your front top tooth and roll it back a little bit. All right, and you feel that curvature. This is called the hard palate. All right, and then it rolls a little bit farther back, and this is called the soft palate. All right, so the hard palate and the soft palate, what we want to do is we want to take our tongue. All right, that's a little flap of skin underneath your tongue. All right, here comes the tip of your tongue. We want to put it right there. All right, but we don't want to press up against the top of our mouth. We want to just kind of like relax it up there. And we're going to kind of blow air through while we press that up there, and you want to get your tongue to vibrate right in that spot. All right, so once again, here's my tooth. I'm going to roll it back a little bit. That's my hard palate. I'm going to go back even further. That's my soft palate. Back here you got the dangly thing. That's called the uvula. All right, but up front in the hard palate, put your tongue up there, and then kind of practice going like you're making an L sound, and then make the sound D as well. All right, when you go you have air coming out. When you go duh, you have a little bit more air coming out. So you want to soften that into the duh and just let it hover there while it vibrates. So there it is. Okay, however you feel trying to make these sounds, think of how I feel trying to teach you guys how to make these sounds. This is interesting stuff here. All right, so once again, everyone repitan che, ella, ñ, r. All right, now put them with the words che, chocolate, ella, llama, ñ, piñata, and r, perro. And we'll practice with that one. All right, so we're going to go through the alphabet now. First up, we have the letter A, our first vowel sound. All right, we've already talked about it. It always makes the same sound, but what we haven't talked about yet is that thing right there. All right, that is called an accent. Couple rules about accents. All right, so number one, the job of the accent is to draw stress to the syllable that carries the accent. All right, rule number two, you can only have one accent per word. All right, rule number three for accents, the accent can only sit on top of a vowel. So in the Spanish language, you won't see accents over anything except a, e, I, o, and u. All right, now if you're thinking about that last slide that we just talked about, and it's got that N and it's got that squiggly thing over it, we call that a tilde or a tilde. That's not technically an accent. That's a different kind of diacritical mark. It's not an accent. And we will see one coming up later on, and we'll talk about it when we get to it. All right, so once again, the accent, it draws stress, one per word, only over vowels. And so what we're going to do is something that my teacher made me do when I was in high school Spanish, and we're going to clap out the stress. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that letter A, and we're going to repeat ah, and then we're going to go águila. All right, what we're doing is we're just like making a point to show that it's got an accent there, put the stress in the beginning. All right, so once again, everyone repitan a, águila. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the letter B. Those stars up there in the corner mean that I need to talk about this letter and tell you something that's important about it. And so what we're going to talk about with this letter B is we're going to talk about how the letter B and the letter V in Spanish, they sound roughly identical. It depends on where it is and what's around it, but for the most part, the B and the V sound the same. And what it is like you had B and then you had V, and they got married and they had a baby. All right, so our B sound in Spanish and our V sound in Spanish are going to sound the same. So remember that when we get to V later on. And it's going to be a softened B. All right, and the way we do that is we let a little bit of air come in between our lips. All right, so if I say B, my mouth completely closes, I occlude all the air, and it kind of pops on the way out. B. All right, if I say V, my bottom lip goes up to my top teeth, and it goes V. All right, so it sounds and it vibrates. All right, the B is just one pop in sound. All right, so we're going to kind of meld those two things together. So everyone repitan B. All right, and you know that I didn't go B, I went B. All right, you can see that my lips are a little bit tighter, a little bit like thinned out. Do that, little bit of air out with it. Don't pop it quite so hard, but don't vibrate that thing quite so hard either. All right, don't let it pop and don't let it vibrate too much. So here we go. Be burro. Once again, be burro. All right, next up is the letter C. So everyone repitan C. All right, and then repitan caballo. But look, this one's got a star on it, which means I need to talk about it. So what I want you all to do in the notes that you are absolutely taking over this video is I want you to write CA, CE, CI, CO, and CU. When you have the CA, it's going to make that hard consonant sound. When you have CE, it's going to make a soft sound. All right, and CI is also going to make a soft sound. CO is going to be the hard consonant sound, and CU is also the hard consonant sound. It's following the same rules that it does in English. All right, so if I have CA, like in cat, it sounds like that. If I have CE, like in scent, it sounds like that. All right, so this is a K sound, this is a S sound. All right, and then CI, like in city, also has that soft sound. So it's following the exact same rule as it does in English. So everyone repitan Ka, Se, Si, Ko, and Ku. All right, once again, with the mouth involved. Ka, Se, Si, Ko, and Ku. If that's not enough information to keep track of, one of the other things we need to worry about is that when you are in Spain, this is going to make a different sound. All right, it's going to sound like the TH, all right, on the CE and the CI. So in Spain, it's going to make that theta sound. And we'll talk about that again later on. So once again, as if we were in Spain, Ka, the, ko, and ku. All right, next up, we have our friend from the beginning of the slideshow. We've got che. All right, so che is going to be like the ch that we have in English. And everyone repitan che, chimpanzé. Once again, che, chimpanzé. And as a reminder, this thing right here, what's it called? Oh yeah, it's called an accent. All right, what's its job? To draw stress to the syllable that carries the accent. It only goes over a vowel, and we can only have one per word. So we're gonna clap this one out because it's got an accent. So everyone repitan che, chimpanzé. All right, next up we have the letter D, and by all rights, the letter D should have a star next to it. So there's your star. All right, so one of the things about the Spanish language that you're going to notice in a lot of the letters is that we're going to soften them up. All right, so we did that with the letter B. All right, the B was not quite the poppy B that we have in English. It's a softened B. We're going to do the same thing with D. We're going to do that by sticking our tongue in between our teeth when we say it. So everyone, repitan, de, delfín. Once again, watch my mouth. Make yours do the same thing. De, delfín. Once again, this has an accent, so we're going to pop it out, or we're going to clap it out. So, de, delfín. All right, moving on. We have our letter E, who we have already talked about. So, everyone repitan E. And remember that it always goes E. Nice weather we're having in Canada, eh? All right, but anyway, it's going to keep that letter E, that sound in the first E, in the second E, and in the last E. So, don't do the thing that we do in English, where we have that upside down E in phonics, which is the schwa sound, and it goes All right, so we don't want to go elefante, we want to go elefante. All right, so once again, everyone repitan elefante. All right, one more time, elefante. Everyone repitan flamingo. Once again, flamingo. All right, F doesn't do anything spectacular in the Spanish language. It sounds just the same way it does in English. All right, we need to follow the same rules here as we did with the letter C. So everyone write G-A, G-E, G-I, G-O, and G-U. All right, and it's going to do the same thing. So with the letter A behind it, it's going to make that hard consonant sound G. All right, and then with the E and the I, it's going to make the softer consonant sound, which to us sounds kind of like the letter H, but maybe like a little thicker up in the top of the throat. We'll do a demonstration of that one here in a second. And then once again on go and gu, you have the hard consonant sound. So everyone, repitan je. All right, see how I did that in the back of my throat a little bit? Not too much, not too little. Also, that depends on who you're talking to, where they learn Spanish, and who they learn Spanish from. Some regions in some countries have a thicker in the background, and then some regions in the world have like a softer background, sound in the back. All right, so once again, everyone, repitan je. All right, and then gorilla. We're going to do the ga, je, he, go, and gu. All right, so everyone, repitan je, gorilla, ga, je, he, go, gu. All right, in the Spanish language, the letter H is completely silent, so we're going to pretend that that doesn't even exist, and we're going to start the word right there. So everyone, repitan H. All right, and if I were to spell H up here on the board, it starts with an H, and it goes like that. All right, that goes H, because once again, this thing's silent. We start the word right there. So everyone, repitan H, hipopótamo. Hey, what's that thing right there? Oh, it's an accent, which means it's going to draw stress to that part of the word. So everyone, repitan and clap it out. H, hipopótamo. Once again, H, hipopótamo. All right, next up we have another vowel sound. All right, we talked about him in the beginning. So everyone, repitan I, and then repitan iguana. Once again, we have I, iguana. All right, you might notice that when I say iguana, my G kind of gets like swallowed in the middle of that word. And that is kind of common in several countries. once again, dialects between countries are going to sound different. And so the pronunciation of the alphabet is going to sound a little bit different, but no major changes except for maybe in South America, around the Argentina regions. All right, everyone repitan jota. All right, once again, if I spelled that out, it looks like that. And so what we're doing here is while the H was silent in the Spanish language, this letter J is going to take its place. All right, so this is going to sound like an H in English. So everyone repitan jota and jaguar. All right, once again, repitan jota. If you want to see my mouth, here it is. Jota, jaguar. All right, next up we have the letter K. So everyone repitan K. Sounds like that. Looks like that, just like K is how you spell that. All right, and then everyone repitan koala. All right, so once again, K, koala. All right, you'll notice that this one has a star in the upper right-hand corner, which means I'm going to talk about it. And the letter K is a borrowed letter in the Spanish language. All right, what that means is that words that are Hispanic or Spanish words aren't going to have the letter K in them. If you see something in the Spanish language that's got a K in it, like koala, that has been borrowed in from a different language. This one from the Aboriginal languages in Australia. All right, next up, everyone repitan L. All right, and when we pronounce the L in Spanish, in English we go L. In Spanish, we're going to shorten it up and los. All right, so we're going to kind of flip our tongue on that L. All right, so once again, L, león. Ooh, look, it's got an accent. Clapping is probably too loud for me when I make the videos, so I'm going to snap it instead. So everyone, repitan L, león. All right, we talked about this guy as one of our new letters. It is the double L. Once again, it makes that y sound. All right, so you guys all know this animal as a llama, but what you don't know is that we've been pronouncing it wrong our whole entire lives. So everyone, repitan ella, llama. All right, so this is going to sound like y, and then ama. All right, once again, everyone, repitan ella, llama. All right, next up we have M. So everyone repitan M, and then repitan mono. And this one isn't going to do anything spectacular. It's going to sound the same way in English and Spanish. All right, same thing here. Everyone repitan N and repitan narval. Remember we talked about the letter B and the letter V. And so when we say this letter V right here, remember to soften up a B or to harden up a V just a little bit. So one more time, everyone, repitan N, narval. All right, next up is one of our new letters again. And if you remember, this sounds like an N and a Y crammed in together. All right, so everyone, repitan Ñ and ñu. And if I were to spell this in English, that's the animal you are looking at right now, a ñu. On a side note, guys, this letter Ñ will rarely ever start a word. You will usually find it in the middle of a word. The only reason this one has it here in the beginning is because this is a borrowed word from an African language. All right, next up we have the letter O. So everyone repitan O. All right, so it's always going to sound like you're saying O, but you're going to shorten that up. All right, and so repitan O, oso. All right, and oso is a bear, and it's also scary. All right, next up, everyone, repitan P, and then pingüino. All right, and this is the other diacritical mark that I wanted to talk about. So first things first, the letter P doesn't sound any different in English and Spanish, except that you might kind of soften it up just a little bit, where it would sound kind of like a hard letter B, but it's not quite like a poppy P like we have in English. So once again, everyone repitan P, and then pingüino. And then this diacritical mark right here is called diéresis. All it does is it's going to add a little bit of emphasis to that letter U. All right, so if I said pingüino, but I pretended like that double U, or sorry, that double dot, the diéresis over the U didn't exist, what this would sound like without that thing right there would be pingüino. All right, and so what we want to do is we want to emphasize that letter in this word, and we want to make sure that we are pronouncing that letter in this word. Because guys, that right there says guía. Now it says guía. That says guía, and it means guide in Spanish. But the end of this word with that double dot over the U, the diéresis, is going to say pingüino. So everyone repitan. Guía and pingüino. Or I guess just guía, guino. Alright, so that's a diéresis. It is a different type of diacritical mark. It is not an accent. It is not a tilde. It is a diéresis. And it brings a little bit of emphasis to that letter just to like have it make its original sound. Alright, next up we got the letter Q. So everyone repitan Q and then repitan quetzal. And one of the things that I want you guys to pick up off of this slide is that the QU in Spanish will never go qua like it does in queen. Alright, so if we look at this word right here, that says porque, not porque. And so right here, this is quetzal, not quetzal. Alright, so once again, the QU will never, ever sound like that in Spanish. So one more time, everyone repitan, Q, quetzal. Alright, next up we have the letter R, so everyone repitan, R. You'll notice that I'm rolling that R just like I was trying to teach you guys how to do earlier in this video. When you see the letter R at the beginning of a word, like right here, it's going to roll. When you see that letter R in the middle of a word, like it is right there, it's not going to roll, it's going to flip. Alright, and when I say flip, what I mean is it's not going to go R. Alright, it's not going to be rinoceronte. Alright, that would be very gringo of us to say. We're going to flip it, we're going to make it go kind of like an L into an R. Alright, so everyone repitan, R, rinoceronte. Alright, once again, R, rinoceronte. One of the things that you can't see on this word right here is that when the letter R shows up in the end of a word, it also rolls. Maybe not quite so pronounced as the R in the beginning, like R, but it's more than a flip, maybe less than a long roll. So it's gonna be hablar, hablar. All right, and then one other thing that we need to talk about is, like we saw at the beginning of this video, the double R will roll as well. So when you have two R's next to each other, they roll. When you have one R in the beginning of the word, just like in when you have one R in the beginning of the word, like rinoceronte, it's going to roll. When you have it in the middle, it's going to flip. All right, next up, everyone repitan ese, serpiente. All right, nothing spectacular about this guy. Sounds the same in English and Spanish. All right, next up, everyone repitan te. And just like with the letter D, we're going to soften this up by putting our tongue between our teeth and saying te. All right, so once again, te and tigre. All right, once again, guys, repitan te, tigre. All right, next up we have the letter U, and we talked about all the vowels earlier, so we know that this guy goes kind of like U, but we're going to shorten it. So everyone, repitan U, urubu. Once again, U, and look, we have an accent, so we're going to snap it out, urubu. All right, so everyone, we've got the letter V, so repitan ube, all right, because that's what he's called. But remember that B and V got married. They had a baby. It's going to sound like a cross between the B and the V together. So, ube, vaca. All right, and you'll notice that when I make this sound, my mouth actually looks more like a B than a V at all. All right, because my lips are coming together. My tongue, my bottom lip is not touching my teeth at all. So one more time, ube, vaca. This guy right here is going to be called doble uve. All right, we call it in English doble W. In Spanish, they call it double V, which makes sense because it actually looks like two V's crammed in together. It's going to make the same sound as it does in English. However, you're not going to see it a whole lot in the Spanish language. So everyone repitan W. Some people will call this V doble, which I think is what we're going to hear in the alphabet song. But again, we are making the same sound as in English, so everyone repitan wapiti. V doble or doble V, wapiti. All right, next up we have the letter X. If I were to write out the way that X would be spelled if you looked it up in the dictionary, that's what it is right there. The letter X is going to have 3 jobs in the Spanish language. All right, and that is going to look and sound roughly the same as it does in English. Everyone repitan. X, examen. All right, so it's going to make that X sound just like it does in English. Okay, we're going to have this guy right there. We're going to have this guy right here. And that is going to be like the letter H that we have in English. So everyone repitan. X, Mexico. And it's going to have a 3rd job, and that is when you see it in indigenous words to Central America and southwestern North America. All right, so the regions that used to be Mexico, the southwest regions of the United States, they're going to have some indigenous words like this guy right here, and this is going to make the SH sound for the most part. So everyone repitan X, xoloitzcuintle. All right, so once again, X has 3 jobs. Everyone repitan examen, Mexico, xoloitzcuintle. Next up, we have E griega. All right, and what that means is this is the Greek letter that goes E. All right, so everyone repitan Y griega, yak. All right, once again, Y griega, yak. This word right here in Spanish means and it just goes E like in peak. But when you have it at the beginning, it's going to make that kind of y sound, not just an E. All right, finally, we're going to call this guy zeta. All right, so everyone repitan. Zeta, zorro. Once again, zeta, zorro. All right, however, if you are in Spain, this is the way it's going to sound. And I don't know if you all know it or not. That is the Greek letter theta, which makes the TH sound that we have in English. So, once again, everyone repitan, just like if we were in Spain. Theta, zorro. All right, in the rest of the Spanish-speaking world, Mexico, Central America, South America, a couple other countries, we have zeta, zorro, but in Spain we have theta, zorro. All right, that is the alphabet, guys. I will add a link right here that is going to take you to the alphabet song so that you guys can go ahead and give that a listen before we end up in class. But just be aware, when we get to class, we are going to be singing this after a little bit of practice with the alphabet. All right, muchas gracias, muchachos. We will get into a little bit more of the pronunciation rules in the Spanish language while we're in class. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video for those people who aren't in my class but kind of happened onto my YouTube channel just because they were redirected there from, the magic of the internets. But anyway, muchas gracias, muchachos. Hasta luego.